Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local. On to AI, which is obviously a really critical topic now in the world of, well, digital marketing generally, but also in the world of content creation. And as you were writing this book, the whole ChatGPT and Google Bard and SGE and Bing GPT were sort of blowing up, and so it's a huge topic. I mean, all the tools that are coming out are just really remarkable in some fundamental way. They're amazing, but at the same time, a lot of the content that I've seen, I've used them to varying degrees, but a lot of the content that I've seen, like blog posts that you can get ChatGPT or Claude or one of these to write, have a kind of generic quality or a very sort of flat quality. They're serviceable, they may be accurate, but they don't have any personality. So do you agree that, I mean, is that sort of what you've seen, or do you think it's, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm stumbling over my question. I find a lot of this stuff to be sort of bland. And I suppose it depends on the topic. It depends on the prompter, but I worry about the future of AI generated content being just lots and lots, volumes and volumes of adequate but mediocre content. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, we're good. The same
Big topic.
tool. Yeah, no, it's a great topic, and people should talk about it anymore. On the first hand, like, I'm going to say that I empathize completely with business owners, people who are struggling, who just are so desperately looking for a silver bullet or a little help. And then it's the easy choice, isn't it, to be like, oh, I'll just get the machine to do it, because it's the elves and the shoemaker story, like, come in the night and like make all the shoes and I'll be great the next day. We've all wished for that, but if we make that and take that easy way out, it's not going to work. Like, AI isn't at the point yet where it could completely do that. And nor, I don't think it will ever get there. The AI is always a tool. It's just a tool that can give us humans extra powers to do things faster, connect dots in ways that we couldn't before. So if you're going to lean on AI to generate all of these like soulless, or even if it had good quality, let's say AI got to a certain point where the articles were like absolutely brilliant. The issue with that still remains that anybody else who put in the same prompt could come up with the same or very similar answer. So what's there to differ? We're just
Right.
throwing more and more out there, which is just the sameness, and that doesn't set us apart. Like, to succeed, like, being human is more important than ever. When calculators came up, all the accountants were like, oh my gosh, we're getting replaced because the calculator's here. And so people are worrying that, oh my gosh, we'll get replaced, the AI is here. No, all the time. Just think about what AI can, it can give us awesome superpowers that'll help us create things in ways that we couldn't, much easier. It's lowered the barrier to entry. Maybe somebody who doesn't speak a language as their first language can create. Maybe people who are not tech savvy can come create and build images and videos. But it's any tool, right? A baseball bat can be used to play the game, or it can be used to like hit somebody and cause harm. And so the same way that we saw the early days of the internet, it feels like the dot-com bubble. I just feels to me that we are going into this like AI bubble where all of these companies are coming up, and then it's gonna like burst, and then it will stabilize in future. So I'm optimistic, but at the same time, like, if you're just going to use it for like crappy manipulative tactics, it's not going to work long term whatsoever.
Well, the real value of these tools may come in the planning process, in the development of strategy and the creation of sort of the thinking, the brainstorming, and the refinement of content strategy, as opposed to generating the content itself. However, people will be using these to accelerate the content generation process. And, you know, I said to you before we started that I found this book to be very optimistic in some fundamental philosophical sense, which I think is great. I am not as optimistic about the future of content in an AI driven world. I mean, I think AI tools are really terrific as time savers, as productivity enhancers. I was using ChatGPT last night, not in a content sense, but to really create some spreadsheets that would have taken me a much longer to create in the absence of that. But I mean, I think the central challenge is differentiation and value creation in this new world where it's so easy to create blog posts and reports and soon video. And that this is really not a question, this is sort of more my editorial comment. Do content creators become reduced to or become redefined as editors in this new world? In other words, the machine is doing, if there are 5 steps, the machine is doing 1 to 4, and then at the end the humans are managing, kind of the final step, just checking it over and then pushing it out the door. I mean, do you see that being the future?
Greg, if you asked me 5 years ago what today would look like, I don't think I could answer. None of us could have answered that correctly.
Yes.
And so I don't think I would answer that question with any degree of accuracy, except it's a possibility. People will try it. I don't know. Is it the right approach? I'm not sure. I think, as you said, there's different tasks and tools. Can we use it to expedite learning about our customers? Can we use it to maybe take a transcript of a 60-minute meeting and maybe have it summarize something into smaller so we can create short form content better? Yes. But we are this is the worst that AI is ever going to be, right? The rate of change, it's developing and advancing so far. So we'll see what happens in the future. But in terms of we're going to get congested with even more poor quality content for sure. But people are just getting better. We've always evolved. We can scroll things faster. We can process things faster than we were before. In fact, if you look at Gen Z, there was a study by Depop about the younger generations, because they've grown up with the phone in their hand pretty much their whole life. Like, their ability to filter information is the fastest than it's ever been, because they're so used to that. They've evolved to have that kind of discretionary, within a few seconds they can be like, nope, this isn't interesting for me, this isn't. So we'll all get better at ignoring it in the same way that we ignored commercials and fast forwarded them.
Well, ironically, Gen Z is much more oriented toward the real world, shopping in stores and offline activities than millennials and Gen X, which are, more inclined to shop online and so on and so forth. So it may be partly a reaction to being inundated with all this digital media. Google and Bing as we're sort of getting close to the end here, Google and Bing are kind of the arbiters. Google in particular is the arbiter of content online, because if you don't create content that ranks, it's never seen. I mean, you can distribute it through email, and there are alternative channels. There's TikTok and other social media. But really, a lot of marketers are very focused on ranking in Google, and Bing also. But Google recently removed language from its guidelines that says we're not going to tolerate machine generated content, or it violates webmaster guidelines if you're using automated content. And they said instead they're focusing on create content for people, not search engines. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. I don't have confidence that people will take that to heart. I've been around enough SEOs and enough marketers to know that people are creating content that they think is going to rank. Great if it's helpful, great if it is persuasive to the target audience, but first and foremost, we want to get in front of Google. What does Google require of us? What will make it more likely for us to rank? And I think that AI will be AI does a lot of great things for SEO right now. Competitive analysis, keywords, keyword expansion, title tags, so on and so forth. But I fear that we're just going to see more and more and more bland, same, serviceable yet unremarkable content in search results. And then Google is not going to do a good job in filtering it out. Agree, disagree, or Bing for that matter? You can speak maybe more directly to Bing.
Well, I don't work at either of them anymore, so I won't speak to them. But from what I've seen, and I remember watching something where Danny Sullivan spoke recently. I wasn't there, but I saw some things on tweets where he said it doesn't matter like how the content's generated, whether it was AI or human. What matters is that it adds value for people, and I don't think that's changed at all. Like whether we were keyword stuffing in like 2005 and submitting to DMOS and all those horrendous things that we did way back then as SEOs to manipulate the search engines, they've always caught up. And I would say it's still a big mistake. Like, don't look at content as this means to an end to fool the algorithms. Content has so much power in engaging people. And what we've seen is, regardless whether it's any social media platform, whether it is any search engine, the algorithm will tend to want to surface content that people really like and respond well to. Like that hasn't changed. It's been the same for years. It's people have gotten smarter at trying to fool algorithms, but the algos always catch up. The house always wins at the end. So that your best way is to stop looking at these algo changes and tearing your hair out every time. Look at what's going to matter to people, to appeal to people. If it's going to get high engagement, right? How do these companies make money? Is if more people come to them, the more time they spend, the more ads they'll be exposed to, right? If I was working at Bing in the past, right, you want more people to do searches on Bing because then they can serve more ads and then people will click and then they'll make more revenue, right? The more usage rates they get, it's easier to monetize. And so people will only use it if they get value from it. And so if you are a post that many people really like and get a lot of value from, think about Rand's Beginner's Guide to SEO that he created almost 2 decades ago. I mean, they've updated it so many times, but if you still search Beginner's Guide to SEO, that's still the one that's been ranking number one for almost 2 decades now. It just proves that so many people found it valuable. So I always say this, I'm like, content is not a means to an end. Content is pretty powerful on its own. Yes, it can help your search engines, but focus on the people. Are they going to like it? Are you giving them value? So I don't know. That's my optimistic.
I of course agree with you philosophically, but I think as a matter of practice, it's a lot more complicated, and there's no sign. There's it's analogous to customer service. So all the CMOs run around and say we're a very customer centric organization, and we recognize the importance that customer service and the customer experience plays in our brand perception, and so on and so forth. And then on the ground, the customer experience and especially customer service is getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And so there's a gap between the rhetoric and the reality, and I think that exists in this context as well. Of course, write valuable content, create valuable content that helps people, that solves problems, that addresses their fundamental needs. Yes, absolutely, you're totally right. I just think in practice it's a lot messier than that, and the real world impinges upon the ability of people to do that. So for my last question here, it's been great talking to you, and we could have gone on for at least another hour, and there were a lot of questions that I didn't get to, unfortunately. But for my final question, if there's one or two things that you want people to come away, there's a ton in the book. It's just very rich, very dense. What are the one or two top things that you would hope that people learn or understand or take away from this book after reading it?
So I would say I'll give you three very quick things. So the one thing is, when you're creating your content, don't start with what do I want to say or what do I want to write. Think about what does my audience want to hear and what will get them excited, right? What do they need to hear? What do they want to hear? Start with that. The second thing is, how do you find that? Is start working with your sales teams a lot more. Marketing and cannot live in silos anymore. Be a partner with sales. They can inform you and tell you a lot more about what is going to motivate and engage the customer than you could ever hope to learn without talking to them. And then the third thing, finally, is make sure that anything you create, don't put measurement at the end. Start measurement or start planning the outcomes you want to drive before you start creating content. So if you can do these three things, you're going to be really well on your way to finding the right success for you.
All right, that's a great note to end on. Thank you for that very practical piece of advice. And again, get the book. There's so much more in it. It's really valuable for content marketers and marketers in general. Purna Virji, thank you so much for talking to me, and hopefully we'll have another conversation in the near future.
Thank you for having me, and I would absolutely love that.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.